Girls, just recently the National Post ran a three-part series on Rwanda and how this nation is rising out of the shadows of mass killings. Moira, let's get started with some background.
Well, I think many of us are among the 30 million people who have read and been inspired by The Purpose-Driven Life. What you may not know is that this bestseller has been on a global mission. For the past 3 years, author Rick Warren and his wife Kay have been busy in Rwanda, which of course is still recovering from the genocide of '94 that killed 800,000 people. The Rwandan government has sponsored a campaign involving church services, study groups, newspaper advertisements, and the distribution of hundreds of thousands of free copies of this book, translated into Kinya-rwanda. Vision and hope is being ignited in that needy nation, girls. I want to say, and not just that nation. I talked to a missionary yesterday who said this book, the first half of it, is just going gangbusters with Muslims in Ethiopia. So God is using it in a wonderful way.
It's interesting too, because I mean, I think a lot of people would think, well, this book was such a North American phenomenon, you know, and this, so how could that translate in a country like Rwanda? But the interesting thing is that the president of Rwanda invited Rick Warren to come. So he actually made that initial step to say, look, we need something, you know, and I've done stories on Rwanda. I've actually interviewed the Warrens when they were speaking at the AIDS conference in Toronto. That was 2 years ago. And, you know, I was so impressed by them because they said, you know, they just spoke so much hope into this dreadful situation that's, especially in Africa, that AIDS is you know, causing so much of a, you know, it's destabilizing governments. I mean, it's the worst thing. But they said that the church can play such a role, and that we have untold resources. The church is a worldwide body that can spring to action, and there's people, and there's, and so it's neat to see the follow-up to that, and that he's actually in Rwanda, and they're actually following up.
You know what was neat? Like I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago, my dad and I went to the Philippines. They were always asking us, have you read The Purpose-Driven Life? Because The Purpose-Driven Life was being translated into the, you know, Tagalog, and people were just buying it up. It was completely sold out in the Philippines. But what was really neat about it, and what I've been reading about in Rwanda, is it's discipleship, it's learning, it's training young leaders to be leaders for the country. And I think that's an amazing thing. And one of the things that really struck me in one of the newspaper articles was that Rick said, invest your life into something that it will outlast it. So always think of something that will outlast it, that will make a difference when you're gone.
And they're training pastors across Rwanda to bring this message of purpose-driven nation to their people in their churches. And one of the pastors working with it, he says, this campaign is it's not a program. It's our best attempt at being obedient to God by saying yes to Him. And so it's not necessarily a program, it's getting back in tune with the Creator and finding out what His purpose is for us as individuals, and then living that out day by day.
And even though it's being spread all around the world, and we're very different from the people in Rwanda, we're, you know, the people in the Philippines, but at our core, we all need hope, we all need a purpose, we all need that.
This is a nation where neighbor has slaughtered neighbor. The psychosocial, the devastation, they may look fine on the outside, but there's so much woundedness. And it is the gospel that is going to really rebuild that nation, build community again.
Yeah, and they have done a lot of work in Rwanda in reconciliation. I did a report, and they have the Gacaca courts there, which is community-based reconciliation. So you have the offender and the offendee come together and reconcile. So the groundwork of reconciliation has been going on in Rwanda, and I think that's why this is an opportune moment to now go to the next step, which is, okay, so where do we go from here? What's our purpose?
And one thing, just quick, what I love is that the Saddleback Church, he's, you know, Rick Warren's a part of, and Kay are supporting this and sponsoring it, sending people out, and even resources. And so that's great to just see the body of the church supporting, you know, reaching beyond. That's right.